Starting project BOL, best form of my life. This is my current physical form of the upper body right now, but now I will put on a shirt. As you can see, I do have a little bit of visible definition, but I had way more visible definition. So therefore, I now want to start. I'm in my late 20s, and I want to start the project of optimizing my life, optimizing especially my health to the fullest. I haven't done so in the past, and I think I now figured a few things out which could lead me towards a path of optimizing all of these things more. Now, this is where I now discuss the different things. Stability. I recently moved and now I found a gym and it seems to work. I actually am beginning to look forward to going to the gym again, which is something you don't really do in the beginning phases of starting out in the gym again. It's not that I ever did not go to the gym, it's just sometimes I left out, basically I didn't go. And this is something that is actually more on the unusual side for me, at least historically speaking. I usually was like just taking workout after workout after workout. Nutritional stability. I recently figured, I think, something out for me, which is a high protein. Basically, it's not specifically high protein and high fat. It is much more just low carb. So it is low carb, but also high protein and also moderate fat, I guess. And I basically turned my nutrition into a custom meal shake. This is what a daily portion looks like. It's actually quite a lot of volume, in total 1.2 liters in volume, I think. And it's vegan protein powder, vegetables, oils and spices. And this is actually something I can also blend or put into a mixer. Actually, in 2 days a mixer will arrive. And so from then on, I can meal prep for an entire week, which increases the stability of my nutrition. Will this be my nutrition forever? Probably not, but now it seems to work, and it also seems to have good effects on my mental stability. And mental stability, of course, is also very important. Jumping back to the gym, I recently figured I need to start tracking my lifts again. If I track my lifts, what I realize is that my attention changes towards me trying to optimize my lifts in the gym. And then if I miss a workout, I know that I won't be able to maybe lift the same weight again the next time. So therefore, it becomes much more important. So my attention is basically increased. So what I actually figured kind of out in the last few weeks and months is that I track my lifts within this app here. This app is called Strong, and actually here you can see the workouts that I did per week. So I track workouts on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do kind of currently an additional workout on Saturday, but this is not for the long term. I can do on Saturday whatever I want actually. It is just sport also, which happens to have then some effect on the workouts here. So you can see that in some weeks I have a higher workout count of 4, which then is the Saturday, which I also track in here, but it doesn't count as an official gym workout. What is also in this app is it tracks basically your sets and also your estimated 1 rep maxes, which is nice because then you can actually see, for example, that my leg press over time developed. And I actually got recently only into a few major lifts, like deadlift was something I didn't really do in the last years. I actually didn't do it at all, basically. And also leg press, for example. I just didn't have a leg press. I had a home gym and there was just no leg press. So basically deadlift would have been the only thing, but I just had a figured a certain set of workouts. And since I now have available more different machines, I can actually switch them up more easily. And so therefore I can do a higher variety or a bigger variety of workouts. Not workouts, but lifts, basically sets, exercises. This is the free version and you cannot set all of these graphs here, which are very nice. In the past I did this with Excel, but I found that I just didn't track it. So what I now figured out is that here's another problem at the gym, that in the gym you don't want to track your workouts actually. So what I figured out is that from memorization, I can somewhat memorize which lifts I did, because these are fairly similar from session to session. So I can sometimes, so usually I do 3 sets. One set is kind of a 5-minute. I do superset within these 5 minutes. So this means I switch 3 sets basically from exercise to exercise. So it's 6 sets within these 5 minutes. Often it's only 1 of each. Often it's 2 of each. What I'm trying to say is that there is a premium version that gives you the graphs, and these are just the one from the trial. There are a lot of other fitness apps out there, and I didn't really start to track, for example, my HRV until now. It's not until now, but I still haven't figured out an actual current solution to tracking HRV. I ordered a Whoop in the past, and also within the last year actually only, I now have a decent watch. Before I had the Galaxy Active 2, also only for a year. So I only have like decent workout tracking within the last 2 years. In terms of other activities, my week looks like this. Every single day I try to do a 10-minute morning run, which could also be 5 minutes, but it's the 10-minute slot basically which I have. So if I hit the 10-minute slot, it could also be 15 minutes. Actually, the total slot is 30 minutes. So it begins at 6, then I change into clothes, but the slot already runs basically, which incentivizes me to not waste time switching into different clothes. Then at somewhere around 6:10 I get out and run, but it's interval training actually. So I do running exercises like jumping, for example, in between, and also these things, and I switch between these. And I know that it was kind of weird switching between speaking and then doing these exercises. I switch between these and sprinting. So therefore I have sprinting sessions in varying the length basically. And especially also due to the cold, so it is now winter again. It is getting winter. It is getting colder, you could say. Winter is coming. I do have a very heightened sense of alertness, which kind of is correlating to me being able to cool my body during workouts and also in general more. I just tend to do better when it is cold, and there seems to be also some evidence behind this. There are, for example, devices, I think these are called Cool Mints, where you can cool your hands and also your feet, and therefore you are able to cool the core of your body the most efficiently, and this increases your mental endurance but also your physical endurance. So you are literally able to do more sets, no, not more sets, but to do more reps in an exercise. So this is what I try to aim at in the morning. Then in the evening, also at 6, so I have kind of this mirroring going on, which I think makes it very easy. It's just at 6 is workout. Depending on the day, if it's the first half of the day or the last half of the day, it's either this very small workout. Why not work out the big workout in the morning? I think it makes more sense to use. So basically, think of the day like this. We have the day, of course here is time called T, and here is the rest of the day. So now, your alertness is actually highest usually in the morning. Of course, there are different cycles. There are these ultradian cycles, which usually last 90 minutes, and you do have a few of these, and then your alertness also is kind of correlated to these. In general, I think it would be reasonable to assume that in the beginning of your day, you have the most alertness. So since you have the most alertness, you also might be able to do the most stuff and the most difficult stuff, basically. And then as your alertness, not really only your alertness, but basically your ability to do stuff that is draining. As the day goes on, of course, it depends on what kind of relation this is. It goes down, either linearly or in another function. So now, I think it would make sense to use the high levels of alertness here to actually do very important mental stuff. Why? Because we define ourselves by the things we are doing in our head. And actually, because I standardized my workouts so much, I actually have them more fun as a kind of enjoyment activity, at least theoretically, depending also on how good my form is. Because of course, the worse my form is, so my general physical form, the worse also the workouts feel. And the worse also I feel, because I do not get self-confirmed by running past others or by cycling past others all the time, but actually the opposite is then true. So therefore, having this in the evening, so this is maybe 6 in the evening, this is 12, this is 6 in the morning. Having this in the evening at 6 acts as a kind of a break. So I usually try to aim for working in between, basically. Yeah, well, that's an entirely different thing, how I structure my day. So I sleep 2 hours in the middle of the day and also sleep 4 hours at night, ideally, which works if I'm on a very high alert thing, on alert state, you could say. But also when I'm on the ketogenic diet and I don't do a lot of carbs. If I do a lot of carbs and I also decrease my physical activity, I do realize that my sleep need goes up significantly. This has happened like 25 times already, and so I think there is some, at least, anecdata about this. So therefore, this acts as a kind of a break from switching from the workday, which is here. Also, in the beginning of the day, I do kind of work or studying for an hour, and then I have the period in which I do management stuff and also financial stuff. So 10 minute slots basically, but that's not really important for this video specifically. What I wanted to say is that it makes more sense in my eyes to have the main workout in the evening, and this also means that you will meet people in the evening. This also means that you will have full stacked gyms, which means that you potentially might meet like-minded people, but it also means that you have kind of a problem with getting the machines in a gym. What I have is kind of a system of, for example, if I wanna incline bench press, this is the exercise, then I have a few different types, and now I can, for example, do a Smith machine. I can also do the incline on a normal incline. I can also do the incline with dumbbells, and when all hell is loose in the gym, I can theoretically also do them with kettlebells on the wall or something like this, which I never do. So usually one of these is free, and therefore this is kind of what I'm running. And then because I have the system, I do basically 30 to 40 minutes, ideally 40 minutes, but I do usually 30 minutes because I'm late always, because also I still have to drive with the bike to the gym, to ride with the bike to the gym. So within these 30 minutes of working out, I basically have 6 sets, 5 minutes. And these sets of 5 minutes are only actually 4 minutes long, and one is for cleaning the machines and so on and so forth. So therefore, I then can switch these exercises, these 5-minute exercises blocks. I have these 6, and I just look at all the different machines in the room and just take a look at what would be ideally linearly the next exercise, and then I can choose basically within these exercises that are left and also within the exercises and machines that are free, and this seems to work quite well. Even if the gym is almost totally full, I never wait actually. And yeah, well, so much about the gym now. So within the broader schedule of the week, I recently actually listened to Andrew Huberman telling it all about his schedule. So what I have come up with is not a schedule that alternates between the days, but it also alternates between the days. In the past, I had a 2-day alternate. I had endurance, workout, endurance, workout. So what I mean with workout is a strength training workout. What I now have is the 7 days of the week are fixed. So I always do the same workouts on these days. What I usually do on Sunday as the first day of the week, I recently switched to Sunday as the first day of the week, at least in my mental image, because this makes the whole week more symmetrical, with the Wednesday being in the middle, and I actually think this is quite nice. So now, and also this stems directly from Huberman, who also starts the week on Sunday. And there is the option to start the week on Sunday on many of these calendars. So on Sunday, so basically I have to also explain something else. I do basically these 10 minutes in the morning, and I do have an hour of total, also including showering, and also including switching into different clothes, and also including getting my other things ready for workouts or for getting to the gym. I do have these 60 minutes, and therefore this usually results in maybe 30 minutes of working out, sometimes 40 minutes if I go for a run, for example, directly out of my apartment. So now I have one of these So basically I have these 2 slots every single day. This means if I work out on Monday, on Wednesday and on Friday, I have 3 workouts a week. And then I have 4 spots left. In the past now, I would have filled them completely with endurance, but I just said I can do whatever I want on these. But whatever I want is a problem because I do have to think about it. And therefore it turns into an optimization problem because there is something that is sometimes better at this day and sometimes better at the other day. Also in terms of recovery, if you figure all of these things out once, for example, it doesn't make too much sense to have leg day here and then to do the running here, because of the leg day your tendons and your muscles, so your muscles will be kind of on the weaker side on this day, which means that you will be more likely to get injured, for example. Therefore, this doesn't really make sense to have this. And to think about concepts like these, I think, makes sense. So now, what I have on Sunday actually is I have a totally free workout. I can basically do not whatever I want, but the most of whatever I would want is on Sunday. Then I ran in the past, basically every second day, and I also sometimes biked. So I asked myself what would be the ideal thing here. And therefore, what I have chosen now is that I just do a bike ride on Tuesdays. This usually results in 10 to 20 kilometers of bike rides, depending on the lights in the city, since I do live in a city. And if I go to the gym, for example, which also I can do because I have a gym membership, therefore I can just enter there, which is also nice because then I can actually measure what I am. I can basically structure my workout better in terms of intervals because I don't have to rely on external cues of environment to basically structure my workout. Basically waiting for the lights, for example, acts kind of as an interval, but as a random interval. So now I have biking on Tuesdays. It's actually running on Tuesdays. It's then biking on Wednesdays. On Saturday, I just do an additional workout. So in the past also tried calisthenics, so it's kind of an additional workout. It could also be a HIIT workout, for example, but it's a combination of endurance and also of gym lifts. The reason I do this now on Saturdays and not on Sunday is that I do then have the small break of the Sunday. And also, this means I do have a full 2 days of recovery, usually. And if I, for example, did an additional workout, an actual workout, and not just something else, on Saturday, I would only have 1 recovery day until my workout week on Monday starts again. And if I do have sore muscles, for example, then it doesn't really, I just don't look forward to the workout as much. Actually, when I began training at age 11 or 12, so I began strength training around there, I often, whenever I could basically at any point in time, put in my fingers in here and it would totally ache because I always had muscle ache in here. And so structuring, and this was mostly, I guess, due to the fact that I never had 2 days off. I basically trained every second day and I also trained hard every second day. And maybe I also didn't eat too much or as much protein as I should. So this is basically the bigger structure of the week. Now, I do have a lot of other activities I also want to do. And for this, the rule again is Sunday is the free day. So if I want to do 2 hours of working out, for example, then on Sunday. And all the other days are fixed. This is kind of a priority thing. During the 5 days of the work week, I just do the normal stuff. It's just 1 hour. I also do have a sauna in the gym, which I intend to do on the days at which I am at the gym already. So therefore, there is no additional transportation cost. But the cost is the time cost is just the 10 or 20 minutes you actually spend in a sauna, and maybe you additionally shower, but I shower already at the gym on these days. Therefore, the added cost is just 10 to 20 minutes. Whereas if you had another day, or you just say, okay, I go to sauna on Sunday, then the cost is usually 10 minutes of packing at least. If it is a gym that is close by and you can reach by bike, then you have 10 minutes of changing into other clothes. Then you have the actual sauna time, maybe 20 minutes, and then you already have 40 minutes, and then 10 minutes again of switching, 10 minutes again of getting back, and maybe unpacking the stuff. So it's 60 minutes in total, 1 hour, for only 20 minutes of sauna, for example. But if I basically added to the 3 workouts, maybe additionally on Saturday also, because usually now I'm on Saturday also at the gym, trying out new exercises, doing a HIIT workout or hitting legs, for example, which I also usually hit within the other days. Since I do HIIT, I basically have the same workout on all of these 3 days, but since I do vary these with, depending basically on how much traffic there is in the gym, I also kind of vary the exercises slightly. So sometimes I do incline bench with dumbbells, sometimes I do it on the Smith machine, for example. Sometimes I do the deadlift because I still have 5 minutes left, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of the plan, and I didn't really start going to the sauna yet, but that's kind of the idea. What I haven't found a solution for. So in the past, I used to live on the countryside, at least for half of the year, in the last years basically. In the last years, usually I lived in summer in a city, and in winter I actually lived more on the countryside. And there it gets cold in winter in general. It gets cold, at least where I'm living, and so I could do cold exposure just outside. Now here's a problem I have currently. I do realize that my mind just works better in winter, and this is a huge difference. Whenever August, then October, November rolls around, my mind level, you could say, begins to rise, and I'm just much more productive compared to the weeks and months before. So I don't really know a solution. I don't really have a solution for this. In terms of cold exposure, actually what I figured already, and this is of course already kind of going into detail about how to implement something like this, but one of the implementations I tried is, so I do live in a city where there's a river. The problem with the river is that the river is basically outside temperature, maybe a little bit of buffered night cold, you could also say. But usually, first of all, the river is a little bit away. Second of all, it takes a lot of time to get there. So it only would make sense, for example, to run and then directly spring into the river, which I did today, for example, the first time again when basically now in fall. What I also figured is you can get these bathtubs which you basically can put into your bath. The problem is just I have a very small apartment, so this would take a lot of space. Also, it is a very big risk actually to have like a full tank here, because it would have to be filled at all times. Otherwise, but I just don't think it would make sense to just fill this for using it once, which might be 100 liters. These tanks don't have to be that big, and also I don't really have a system to fill them with ice water currently, because not ice water, but with ice cubes, for example, because my freezer is not that big and I need it for my nutrition. So therefore I don't really have a solution for this. Ideally, the gym would also provide something like a cold bath or an ice bath. There is something like this, so there is a little bit of a cold shower thing in the gym that it is a little bit colder. It is actually a bucket that is next to the sauna, but well, I haven't figured out how to properly introduce cold into my life again. And since I basically in the last winter went almost every single day for at least 1 minute into an ice bath, at least depending on the outside temperature. It's not an ice bath actually, only of course if the outside temperature is below 0 degrees, because then you usually have ice or snow in the tub. Also if it snowed into the tub, but apart from this it was just an outside temperature bath, you could say. And if it is winter, of course, then it is sometimes an ice bath, so there is some overlap. Let's talk tracking. You need a system, I think, for overall tracking, and here is kind of my system. I currently have the overview in Samsung Health, so it's called S Health and it's the Samsung thing. And the main reason is because the Samsung watch also is simultaneously a smartwatch. It is a fitness tracking watch, actually more on the bad side of the fitness tracking watches compared to a Garmin, for example, but it is also a smartwatch, and I wanted both, and I don't want to wear 3 watches, and I still want to have my Casio watch because I use it in order to just visually have a representation of time on my wrist, which is kind of the purpose of a watch. And smartwatches kind of defy this purpose because usually I have put it off due to saving battery. The screen is actually off all times unless I actually touch it here on the knob and then it turns off. So now S-Health is currently one of the main things. I also do have a few other services that are called either Strava. So Strava is one. There is also the gym tracking app. The gym tracking is kind of weird because for a run, for example, the run is already tracked within Samsung Health and you don't need to additionally track it. But with the gym, for example, you cannot track the individual lifts in the gym in Samsung Health, for example, or comparable apps like Apple Health or Garmin Health. With Garmin Health, you can. Garmin Health is called Garmin Connect actually, and this would be one reason to potentially get into the Garmin ecosystem, even though you then might miss out on the Galaxy Watch functionality of the Galaxy Watch. So basically on the smartwatch functionality of the Galaxy Watch. Now, I do use Strava a little bit, which is an app that is where you can basically share your activities with friends, which adds a social pressure to sport, which is nice. So what I currently have set up is that every activity I actually record on here, which I record whenever I manually record, is automatically transferred to Strava, which means that someone who wants to watch what I do, and I do have currently the map feature, which shows where you live and so on, or where you run at least, I do have it turned off, but people can see my heart rate, for example, my friends can see my heart rate. Then I do have the gym tracking app, which is called Strong. This is one. I do have also a lot of other apps, which I also showed in other videos already. That's not so much the point of this video. I also tried tracking my activities in Excel in the past, but the main problem with Excel is the following. It is only manual and you cannot really automate the whole thing. Whereas Samsung Health, for example, is automated. The only thing I need to do is input manual workout recordings and then the whole ecosystem is set up. It automatically transfers them to Strava. It also records them automatically in here. Samsung Health does not have a very good nerd interpretation of the data, which is not that nice, but I still haven't found something that is better. I cannot also copy my activities to Garmin Health or Garmin Connect. It only works the other way around. You can use Garmin Connect as a source with third-party apps that then synchronize the data to Samsung Health again. What I'm searching for is an overall health app. There have been a few contenders to this. One of them is called Heads Up, which I tried, and I'm currently, or within the last few weeks, I dabbled with thinking, or I dabbled in my mind with buying this. A lifetime subscription for basically 200 euros, which is quite expensive, but the alternative is to buy a subscription, which is then $60 a year. So basically they incentivize you to buy the whole thing, but I don't know. It actually would act as an even more top tier thing. So if this is already top tier Samsung Health, it is not really top tier because you cannot include data from multiple sources. What I also have, by the way, is Zero, which is a fasting app, and I theoretically track my fast in here. So I tried over the last years. I got myself into fasting, into intermittent fasting. I have been on and off it. I sometimes did 23 to 1, 22 to 2, 16 to 8, 20 to 4, depending on the circumstances. I also did a 5-day fast once and also 2 days, 3 days, and so on and so forth. Had benefits. The main downside is that you cannot really schedule the whole thing properly. What people like Tim Ferriss and Matty Bella do, they have 4 quarterly weekly fasts, or depending on the person, it of course varies a little bit. And these boys are basically the main long-term fasts or multi-day fasts, and then they do like smaller fasts, like not eating breakfast. And what Heads Up would act as is as a synchronizer, and you could connect different fitness apps like Zero Fasting, for example. I currently think they don't have Zero Fasting in there. You could also connect Garmin, Samsung Health, Whoop potentially also, and then what you also can do is you could add your blood recordings. And there just is currently not a solution for this. You either have to do it completely on your own. This means you have to invest a lot of time. This makes it more likely over time or less likely over time that you will actually do something about this and also maintain the whole thing. And I found just whenever I have to maintain the whole thing, and also whenever I am able to change this system constantly and define, basically reset what, for example, makes a good workout or what makes a 8 out of 10 workout, if I myself have to come up with the definitions of these things, then of course I change them over time, because sometimes I think makes more sense and this makes more sense. But if you have something that is provided by somebody else, then this is less likely, and therefore it is also mentally not as demanding if you just buy a cookie cutter solution, you could say. So ideally, Heads Up or a similar service in the future would basically give you an overall view over your health, would put out your biological age, which is maybe the one number which basically encompasses all the different aspects of health. So basically getting down your biological age, as proposed, for example, by Brian Johnson, who, not proposed really, but he does a project which is called Blueprint, trying to get his biological age down to as low as possible. Since you cannot really go back to 0 or negative, this means you can potentially get back to maybe the ideal form, or maybe 18, or reach a fitness level of somebody who's 18 or 24. And if you're 50, for example, and you still are biologically 25, then you are kind of cheating death in a way. And if you are, with every year you get older, chronologically, you then get a year younger, biologically, you're basically not getting older anymore. And then if with every year you are getting older, chronologically, you are getting 2 years younger, then you're basically outliving death, basically constantly. So this concept is called the escape velocity, where you escape death basically constantly, where the rate of you gaining additional life years is bigger than mortality, basically reducing, or chronological age, basically causing mortality to skyrocket in the late years of your life, and therefore to make it more likely that you will die from any disease, basically. That's kind of how I currently understand it. So if you take mortality, for example, it looks a little bit like this. So this is age 90 and this is age 0. So by getting the biological age down, you're basically reducing your risk of dying of all of the different factors, of all the different diseases, because they just multiply with increasing mortality, increasing biological age, and also chronological age currently. They just increase and multiply, and therefore it doesn't really matter from which you actually die, because if you didn't die from cancer, you would have died from another cancer, for example, within the next few years. So just because of the risks that are basically multiplying as you get older. So now, Andrew Huberman, for example, has kind of a schedule where on Sunday he does an extended workout. And what I currently have is not really an extended workout. What I do nevertheless have is I do have still a little bit of activity. Currently I do 20 minutes of tracking basically time. So I have 10 minutes of tracking habits and 10 minutes of tracking my time in the morning and in the evening. And I recently kind of experimented with putting these outside. Before I just stood in a room or sat in a room and I just tracked them on my phone. And currently what I'm experimenting is with just walking outside and basically typing these habits and tracking my time. So therefore I am adding 20 minutes in the beginning of the day and 20 minutes at the end of the day. Let's see if I can get a 2. Yes, it actually is a 2. And this adds about 2,000, no, I don't really know how much steps each now is. Maybe either each is 2,500, probably combined they are 2,500 steps probably. What I, instead of usually getting only like 5,000 steps before, with doing this and increasing therefore my steps and also my walking activity, of course I am also increasing the different zones, the low level zones. It's not zone 2, I guess, it is more on the zone 1 side, because I'm not out of breath or I don't have trouble speaking or barely speaking. So it's more on the side of zone 1, I guess. if I remember the zones correctly. But what I'm adding is activity here, but I'm also adding, or I'm also decreasing the efficiency of the tracking. And what I'm also adding is light exposure. And this is crucial, I guess. So already, because I do work out at 6 in the morning, I do, depending now on the daylight saving time mode, which is currently the one. So for example, now as I'm recording this, it is becoming winter again, and recently the daylight switch happened. So now actually like a month or 2 months ago, when I went outside at 6, it was already bright enough for the light exposure to work. You can actually track your light exposure now with an app called Virtusion, which is also endorsed by Andrew Huberman, and there's a light meter in there that then tracks. So you can put it outside, and there is a sensor in your phone usually that also makes your screen go brighter or darker, and this tracks the light exposure and then just has like one of these things that actually fills up if then your light exposure is ready. So I tracked it a few times in a few days, and I realized, of course, as the days got shorter, the light exposure at 6 was not working anymore. But what I'm now adding is this light exposure at 7. So at 7, again, I go out, and from 7 till 7:20, I do these 20 minutes of tracking, and therefore I am getting 2 different windows. Now, the daylight time has switched back as of recently, and so now the 6 o'clock window still is too dark, so it's basically still completely dark, pitch black outside, but now the 7 works, and therefore I am getting now the 7 daylight basically. So you should at least get 10 minutes of sun exposure of morning light. That's kind of a very simplified statement out of all of the different things Andrew Huberman explains on his podcast. And either it is because of the light exposure, either it is because of now the nutrition that finally kind of works, and at least I'm kind of not on the, so on the scale from me being, at least according to the BMI, of course, which doesn't really account for muscle mass and so on and so forth. But if I just take body fat, for example, so in terms of BMI, I recently was close to being overweight actually. Of course, I also maybe have a little bit more muscle mass, but not that much more muscle mass, I guess. So in terms of body fat, I recently, so I do have a scale from brand Renfo, or Comtron actually. It's a different app, and it's kind of the one, and I do have the same app you also see on other YouTube channels, which mine is called Feel Fit, and it is basically a copy-paste app from another app. And this watch, not this watch, this scale measures my body fat. And some people say, yeah, that's super inaccurate. Yeah, it is. It might be off about 20% potentially. But here is the thing. Over time, the inaccuracy of the scale is the same. So, of course, there are 2 different sides to this. The inaccuracy can go into both directions. So, basically every measurement could be either now off by 20% too high, for example, or by 20% too low, but it also could fall within a range of inaccuracy. So if the accuracy here goes up and down, but then also the bigger measurement also goes up and down, then of course you don't really know that much, but you just assume that the accuracy is kind of skewed into the same direction with the same distance to the actual measurement, to the ideal measurement. And this is kind of the assumption, and then over time you can actually track your weight and your body fat and your bone mass and so on and so forth. And I actually now again cut it down. I got it down like 25 times within the last 2 years already, but I also got it up again. So therefore it didn't really make sense. The fact that I can it is just so, it is not nuts, but until I was like, I don't know, 24, so now I'm basically a little bit older than 24, I could just pull up my shirt at any point in time and I would just have a six-pack down under, not down under, but underneath my shirt. And so this is also, in terms of confidence, it is just nice to have, I guess. And if you then don't anymore, it just is not very, it just isn't, the negative effect on the mind is quite there, I would say. So this is regarding body fat. I try to reduce my body fat. I don't know to which level exactly. I also don't really have an accurate measurement, and also DEXA scans, for example, are off. Even though DEXA scans also, so there's also the downside of having a little bit of radiation with the DEXA scans, and also they're just expensive, and also they just take a lot of time, so I probably won't do one of these. What I do have is the Galaxy Watch, and it also measures my body fat, but what I noticed is that the measurement is usually even more off than the scale, so it also varies a lot. Even if I within 2 days didn't get gain 2% of body fat, obviously, usually at least, and it is off a lot of the times, or it is very inconsistent, I would say. And also it depends, of course. Body fat is your fat divided by your total mass. So if your total mass is this here, and your body fat looks like all of these fat cells, then it's body fat divided by this, and it's a ratio. So therefore you do need to have a scale, and if I weigh myself on a scale, I might as well take the body fat measurement off the scale. Now, when it comes to reaching bigger, higher goals, like a triathlon, for example, or a marathon, I actually ran a half marathon in the past. Here is my experience. If I have a certain target I want to reach, then I don't want to say I'm too type A. I mean, also there is kind of this weird thing, if you say to somebody else you're type A, then you're basically saying, oh, I work very hard. Kind of, I don't really know. But here's the thing. If I want to reach a certain target, for example, I want to lift heavier in the gym, then I will do things that make me lift heavier. The problem is just, in the past, as I said, with the chest muscle being sore all the time, and also with other things, within the first year of trainings, I actually, if, for example, this again is training, and this is my progress, then I made some progress, and then I plateaued because I injured myself, and then I couldn't really train, then I got into it again, and then I plateaued again or regressed back because I injured myself again. Either it was like the elbows, or it was something within the wrist or within the fingers, or I tore one of my fingers basically too much, and it just never ended. And then it was the shoulders. There was always kind of a problem. What I realized is that, for one, my workouts were too inconsistent, and for two, whenever I then got speed up, I allowed myself to just lift more, and I allowed myself to run faster, and so on and so forth. I didn't pay enough attention to keeping consistency, and only slowly increasing the intensity and also the weight and so on and so forth. When it comes to running, when it comes to biking, of course it varies, but with swimming, for example, it would be easier. But what I noticed is that I have to basically accept that I cannot train as intense as I would like to. At least in the last few years, I did not train as intense I would have wanted to. On the other side, yesterday, for example, I trained more intense, and today I noticed that one of my fingers was basically a little bit torn, and if I continued, or also with bicep curls, often you notice that here the tendon begins to ache a little bit. So these are all different things. And so now, if I trained for a half marathon, for example, in the past, which I actually did, I had a super bad time of like 2 hours and 6 minutes, which was really bad, and I also walked in between. And I also couldn't walk for the next 2 weeks. And this injury, actually, then I couldn't like properly run for the next year, I guess. So I just did this run, this marathon. I wanted to draw something. Let's just draw like this marathon as a hypothetical route. I actually ran this marathon, half marathon, so 20 kilometers, 21 kilometers, without major preparations. Why? Because my training looked like this. I trained and I hurt myself. Basically, it hurt too much. The accumulated injuries hurt too much. Then I go back again. Then I trained, then and so on and so forth. So I never could actually get up to a level where I could run more than 10 kilometers without something in me hurting so much that I couldn't run anymore, or that it just wouldn't make sense to run anymore. Because, I mean, it is just obvious that your body is telling you, stop, dude, stop, stop, stop. And it's like, if it's just continuing, then there is just no point. So what I did is I ran all of these 21 kilometers. I'm trying to remember if I walked. Maybe I didn't ever walk one single step in between. I can't remember. Maybe I did, maybe I did not. So I resulted in 2 hours and 6 minutes, which is ridiculously bad for me, being basically in the best years of my life. I was so embarrassed about the time. I told absolutely nobody about this time. Nevertheless, I did a half marathon, and then I couldn't walk, and also I couldn't properly run for the next 2 years. And this taught me something, because this was not the first time. I did the exact same thing a few months later, basically, when I tried to train for a marathon I signed up for. So I also ran then as a training 21 kilometers, and then I couldn't walk for the next 2 weeks. And the question is, how can one be so ignorant of one's own body? And in the past I used to think, oh yeah, it's just I can't do more and I can do more. And theoretically I could, but only if I had a smarter approach. And now, with my smarter approach, where I don't have to constantly push myself, because the whole week is laid out already, and I cannot do that much wrong because I only have like 40 minutes of working out. Of course, what is now missing is the longer workout. What I kind of consider as the longer workout is maybe on the days where I, for example, run here. If this is Tuesday, it's not actually Tuesday if I consider Sunday as the first day of the week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then I also often ride with a bike to somewhere else and then somewhere back. And so this might be an additional 5 to 6 kilometers, which I usually tend to also try to have high intensity, at least kind of. So maybe this is kind of counting as my workout. So I try to also keep active during the day. I have usually, if I do all of these, 4 mini workouts during the day, which consists out of 25 push-ups, 25 pull-ups or biceps curls with my toolbox, because I currently do not have a pull-up bar in here, which is kind of sad, and I also cannot put one on the bathroom door or something like this, because it is just too unstable and I don't want to crack the apartment door or the frame. And I do them in the beginning when I stand up, so to increase alertness already when I stand up. Then after I run in the morning, then after the main workout, so in the evening workout basically, I finish off with these. And oh yeah, I also do 25 jumps. So it's 3 different sets, 25 push-ups, pull-ups and jumps. And so I have at least 100 jumps a day, 100 pull-ups, not 100 pull-ups, I actually do only 10 pull-ups. Then it's a total of 40 pull-ups theoretically, but I don't have the pull-up bar currently, and also haven't found the solution yet, and 100 push-ups. So that's kind of what all of this activity is. Now, where is the variation occurring? The variation is on Sunday, if I want. So what I'm currently experimenting with is a few different things, which is, first of all, skating. So this is a skateboard. No, this doesn't look like a skateboard. Well, maybe I just tell you. So I'm experimenting with skating. So Sunday is the day where I try new things, where the workout itself doesn't have to be high intensity. And with this approach, I think I can, in a given week, improve my skill level, so my movement abilities a little bit, because I learn a new activity kind of on the Sunday. I also learn new exercise patterns, at least circuit, high intensity, and so on and so forth. So I try kind of different things, but still kind of working out, but endurance part of working out. A mixture in between strength training and endurance training on Saturday currently. And on Sunday, for example, if I wanted to go for a hike with a friend, for example, I would do it on Sunday. And then I maybe would not do the evening workout, I don't really know, but usually I just don't do the hike with a friend, because then I just can stick to my workout and it's super easy and I don't have to mentally I don't have to mentally complain, and I also cannot really mentally complain, because this is just the thing that makes the most sense. And this is the thing that I probably can do for the rest of my life. This is the thing that also doesn't take so much time, because I only have 60 minutes in total. It is 90 minutes a day, but the 90 minutes is not actually workout time. The workout time is actually usually only like 40 minutes a day. So the rest is showering 2 times a day and this also isn't too good for the skin. For this reason, I just figured I just leave out the soap, which is also something I tried as an experiment, and it has gone well. My skin is not too bad. My skin is actually quite bad already, and if I shower 2 times with soap a day, it is just way worse. So for this reason, I actually got rid of soap for my hair a few years back already, and I just don't use soap anymore apart from washing the hands, which is super weird and ridiculous. But there are a few other videos online, so if you want to try it out, go to these different videos and don't bombard me. There's nobody bombarding me with the comments anyway, because nobody's watching this video, these videos. So for this reason, let's talk HRV. I actually found an app that tracks HRV with the Samsung Galaxy S10, which is nice. Why? Because the Galaxy Watch 4 doesn't track it for you, and Samsung have also, despite tracking it probably for stress, doesn't output it. The app I found is called Welltory, and it looks like this. I actually will show you in a few seconds if there is any information I don't want to share. So it's still loading, it's still loading. So the main thing you can do within here is that there is a sensor on the back of your phone, at least the Galaxy main devices, the flagship devices have this, and then you can just press this button, this here lights up, and what you then can do is you can track your HRV, at least one single measurement of HRV, which of course is ridiculous, because, I mean, one single measurement. Imagine you took your blood rate, not your blood rate, but your pulse rate, once every day or once every week, and this is more like once every day or once every week, and then you took it at different parts of the day, and for example, when running, you would see like, oh, it's 158, and then on another day, oh, I just slept, it's 58. So what happened here? It's like ridiculous. And this is kind of the state of the art when it comes to measuring hormones, for example. I actually recently watched a video from Brett Maverick where he discussed his testosterone levels, and he was like, this week it was like this, and the next week it was like this. And there is just a lot of fluctuation going on, I guess, also with testosterone levels, which are usually, I guess, the highest in the morning, and just all of these hormone levels, and just also your pulse rate. It doesn't make sense to have like a measurement like once a day, for example, or once a week or once a month. When it comes to the different blood pressure not blood pressure, but blood results, it would make sense potentially to continuously measure all of these, but the technology, I guess, is not there. Of course, there are also privacy concerns when you then watch a YouTube video, and Google has literally all the data of your response. Then this might be also not slightly dystopian, you could say. I guess the main takeaway from all of this is this: I don't have a big plan to get into the best shape of my life. The plan to get into the best shape of my life is not a temporary plan. It's a long-term plan. It's a thing I can do until the rest of my life. So therefore, the best shape of my life is just a byproduct of me actually just adhering and sticking to this plan. And maybe there will be more and more services that come out that will actually then also allow you to track your HRV. And now it's actually done. We can actually see what my actual HRV is. I did have a vaccination today, and I also went on a run. And also I went into the cold bath after day, and it says my heart rate variability is comparably high at 102 milliseconds. And I also feel comparably good within the last days. I didn't sleep that much, but I didn't also need sleep that much because I also slept actually when I went to sleep. And this is kind of, I don't know, maybe the accumulation of a few different effects. And whenever one of these phases actually occur, I just am trying to emulate these again. And usually the similarities between all of these different phases are, I can use cold as a tool to increase my alertness. I also am usually quite active. So like active basically all the time. Like I'm also standing right now, for example. If I'm working on my main computer, I also often switch a little bit, or also just take a step back, just random stuff like this in order to get rid of the bad effects of sitting. And I actually don't sit usually during the day. I just don't. And so I have kind of a habit, which is that I do not sit longer in one session, so in one sit down, than for 10 minutes. And actually I could check this habit off actually quite a few times already. The app now also tells me that the measurement quality is pretty low. This app actually also allows you to link a lot of other things, like theoretically you could link your YouTube account if you are a YouTuber and then see how your success relates to other things. The problem is just there are almost no insights regarding this. So what you can track, let's stop the measurement. In total, in summary, if these are all the behaviors that I did in the past regarding my health, the goal, I think, is not to necessarily now come up with the big plan to change it all up. Because the big plan to change it all up is probably something that has a kind of a rejection. Not a rejection rate, but a rejection reaction from your mind. Because your mind is not used to this new thing. Of course, it can get used to this new thing, but the main problem is if you change things too fast, then you see the change. And if you are seeing the change, then you might want back. Because the mind is basically a network of neurons. So everything you think, at least from my understanding, is kind of stored on there. And as you're thinking, you're running on these different pathways. So now, if you change, first, you cannot change if the pathways don't change. So this is also kind of the faking till you make it idea. If you want to change, you first need to change the pathways, because otherwise, every time to the grocery store, you will see the waffles and the chocolate and I don't know, and then you will buy it again if you haven't changed in between. So basically, the way to change is to basically fake the right behavior, theoretically. In the last few years, if these are the different behaviors I exhibited, the basic thing that kept me from actually becoming more healthy and more healthy was just the bad behaviors, I guess. So the only thing I basically have to do is cut out the bad behaviors and obviously replace them with good ones. I do already kind of know how this goes because for years I already worked out. For years I already went for runs like 3 times a week after school, and after school even if it had like 30 degrees outside. This doesn't mean I was a particularly good runner, but nevertheless I did it, so therefore I probably was a better runner than if I hadn't run. And that's the main comparable I want to compare myself against the version of me that doesn't do all of these things. So maybe by just getting rid of the bad behavior, which in the past was, in the last 2 years, was basically just really bad eating, actually. And if I just get rid of this, all the others will probably stabilize. Here's a few observations I made, actually. If this is a leg, this is the upper leg and this is the lower leg, then if you now have a layer of fat around here, every time your leg hits the ground, the fat actually wobbles. And this is probably not something that's very good for your tendons, for your ligaments, and also for your bones, and also for your joints. This is something I really realized, actually. And it sounds so stupid, it sounds so trivial. And I also, of course, can speak about this kind of with this kind of funny thinking, because I think of this as not me anymore, not so much at least. But and also I didn't used to be like this in the past. But the idea is that these behaviors basically make everything else worse. If you have like one really bad behavior, like maybe not working out, like maybe eating bad, then the eating bad just keeps you from running, for example, or keeps you from going to the gym because you don't like going to the gym because you cannot lift anything, or because you have headaches all the time, or I don't know. It also keeps you from getting good sleep and so on and so forth and so forth. So by me reducing this here, and this is actually kind of what I'm currently working on, have been working on, and also made like 10,000 videos about, like, this is the new prime shake that I will now eat. This is the newest iteration because the last one had way too little protein. And what I think of as the body is actually just a visual representation of all of the different actions you do. So if the actions are right and you repeat them, let's say this is a wheel, and you repeat them day in and day out, and this is also kind of why I made these days so similar, because then it is easier. Because the choices I make are easier. This means that with a given set of willpower, I'm more likely to make the choices that actually lead, or to make the choices that I actually wanted to make instead of making the choices I didn't want to make. So if then you do these behaviors time and time again, and of course you could now say this is 2-dimensional, and this gets 3-dimensional by basically going up like a parking lot elevator for cars, and then you have 3 dimensions, then your body at any point in time is just a function of all the behaviors you did in the past. If, for example, you have a leg and you have like 2 kilograms of fat on this leg or on this leg, then these 2 kilograms of fat are fat you ate in the past too much food of. And it is so clear. This is the food that you ate maybe 2 years ago, and it is still on your body, and it is just so weird, I guess. Nevertheless, if you fix the behaviors, you fix your body. So therefore, by trying to just fix the body, I guess it doesn't really make sense. You have to fix the behaviors first, and behaviors are fixed by choice architecture. So by choosing beforehand, by using your planning mind to try to avoid likelihoods, to try to avoid the situations that maybe lead to you eating slightly worse. For me, this means, for example, that I just don't go to restaurants. I also have a financial incentive to not go to restaurants because I just have less money to pay for food. And what I now have with this nutritional approach is I just have a very good default. A good default that doesn't mean that my mind gets polluted by carbohydrates, even though this now might sound quite polar, this view might sound polar, but for me it is kind of the experience at least. Maybe it's also a total nocebo effect or a placebo effect, depending on how you view this whole thing, but nevertheless it is there, and if I could just generate placebo and nocebo effects, then I would, but I can't. So this is the whole idea of kind of the nocebo and the placebo effect. If you could just tell yourself, then obviously everybody would, but it is quite difficult to just tell yourself that something is good for you, like fasting, for example, which you can do, and you can also then generate actually dopamine by telling yourself this. You can basically change your dopamine system and release dopamine when then you are fasting, if you tell yourself that fasting is something that is good for you. Of course, fasting doesn't really make too much sense to do it all the time, or it depends, I guess. There is different literature out there and different people that are way smarter and way more read up on this topic than me. And so this in total is how I plan to get healthier and healthier and healthier, and potentially also my body then showing this health, and potentially also finally fixing my posture and not hanging like this on the videos all the time.